and which is Independent Socialist Group. Today we are here protesting the extra $250,000 that the Worcester City Council has allocated to the police department in the middle of the largest anti-racist movement that we have seen since the Civil Rights Movement. That vote passed the day after Worcester Police Department attacked innocent protesters, arrested them, beat them, and the City Council, largely run by people in the Democratic Party, is trying to give them an extra $40 million. It was already below the budget. They get $52 million a year. We are out here protesting that budget, saying don't give them the money, cut the money, and reinvest it in the 104 educators with the Education Association of Worcester, the local teachers union, that have lost their jobs by budget cuts to our public education.
Hello everyone, my name is Dry. I'm a Worcester native, member of Independent Socialist Group. Our table is right over there, you can find out more about us. I'd like to start off by quoting Malcolm X, who recognized the need for unity in our fight against capitalism and racism. He said, in my opinion, the young generation of whites, blacks, browns, and whatever else there is, you're living in a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and now there has to be a change and a better world has to be built. I, for one, will join with anyone, I don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth. Woo! We know who our real allies are. The Communication Workers of America, who have initiated work stoppages to protest police brutality, and the union longshoremen who closed ports all along the West Coast on Juneteenth to protest police brutality. These are our real friends in this fight. We can unite the fight against police brutality and racism with the broader workers' struggle for better conditions, because all of these issues are connected to the larger fight against the capitalist system.
Woo!
Solidarity between the labor movement and the anti-racist movement is crucial for achieving our demands, because an injury to one is an injury to all.
Woo!
Many in the city council, though they hide behind the veneer of being nonpartisan, are part of the Democratic Party. The same Democratic Party that wrote and implemented the 1994 crime bill that helped lead our current state of mass incarceration today. The same Democratic Party who dominates Boston, New York City, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, and most major cities where police budgets are bloated and police brutality is rampant, and they've done nothing. Just a few weeks ago, we gathered in this spot to demand justice for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and all the other countless victims of police brutality and racism. Worcester City Council members said that they supported the movement and stood up in solidarity with us. Christian King even led his own protests. They pretended to be the friends of the movement, yet immediately after the first few protests in Worcester, every last one of them unanimously voted to give the Worcester Police Department an extra $250,000. And at the same time, to add insult to injury, Worcester Public Schools laid off 104 educators and are forcing students to bring their own masks to school in the fall. That's ridiculous. They're showing us where their priorities lie. Tonight, we should be prepared for the fact that they may vote the same way they did last night if we don't keep up the pressure. But we can take the fight against the police budget and against the increase to the police budget and turn it into a fight to fully fund our schools. We can fight for education in our fight against racism, because the two are intimately interlinked.
Woo!
The EAW, the local teachers union, and our teachers unions nationally should take action like others have so far to get cops out of our schools, to fight for the nearly $1 million that's spent on school resource officers on criminalizing our black and brown youth. That $1 million, nearly $1 million, should be spent instead on funding our crumbling education system. Should be spent on masks. Should be spent on rehiring those 104 educators that have been laid off for no reason. This money shouldn't be going to a police department that has been caught on video beating young protesters, many of them high school and middle school students themselves, with batons. That's complicit in the school-to-prison pipeline here in Worcester as well.
Woo!
Compared to the massive Worcester police budget of over $52 million, adding another $250,000 is small change. But think instead what could be done if we went much further in defunding the police and instead fully funding our schools, built quality and affordable public housing, created public works jobs to handle our massive unemployment crisis that we're having, even before COVID. What if we expanded and made the WRTA fare-free, with more routes and more access to uplift our black and brown communities that disproportionately require and rely on public transit to get around and to get to work. We can't wait on either of these parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, and their billionaire backers to save us. They're not our allies in this or any struggle against oppression. We can only rely on our own power as workers and as youth. And we're to fight to undo the racism and the genocide that global capitalism was built on and create a truly just society. It must be done through our own power, independent of corporate influence.
Woo!
We need organizations of the working class to sustain the energy of the movement. Civil rights were not won in a month. Many of the most famous struggles, like the Montgomery bus boycott, took years to be victorious, and took a lot of organization. By organizing unions, community organizations, and all those interested in fighting against racism and capitalism, we can sustain this struggle until our demands are met. We are already seeing, even right now, politicians caving to this new movement. In Los Angeles, they cut $133 million of the LAPD budget. Now, even though this is a small fraction of the entire budget that makes up almost 50% of Los Angeles' city budget, it's still an amazing initial victory that demonstrates that our movement is working.
Woo!
Sure. We've seen all 4 Minneapolis police officers involved in George Floyd's death and his murder have been fired and indicted. We've seen institutions across the country, from high schools to college universities, cutting ties with the local police department. But make no mistake, this fight is far from over. The cops who invaded Breonna Taylor's home and murdered her in her sleep still walk the streets and have not even been charged. The officer that assisted Derek Chauvin in murdering George Floyd have been released on bail and are walking around like everything is fine in Minneapolis. It is clear that we can't stop at simply punishing the cops who have already taken innocent lives. We can't stop until we take on the capitalist system that relies on police to maintain this racist, unequal, mass incarceration system that we live in.
Woo!
We need solidarity, real solidarity. We need a 24-hour general strike to hit the capitalist class, to hit the politicians where it matters, in their wallets. That's the only language they understand. And to fight until these cops are convicted. Until not just those who killed George Floyd, not just Ahmaud Arbery, not just Breonna Taylor, but Trayvon Martin, but Mike Brown, by Eric Garner, everyone who's been murdered by police deserves justice, and we have to fight until we achieve it. We need community control, not toothless civilian review boards, but democratically elected committees made up of regular people from our communities, like the people here today. The communities that are actually being policed should have the full power over the police departments, with the final say on hiring, on firing, on investigating police misconduct, determining policing priorities, and setting the police budgets.
Woo!
To wrap up, as Malcolm X famously said, you can't have capitalism without racism. We must fight for a new world, a socialist world, free from inequality and injustice. We must fight against the divisions that capitalism perpetuates in order to prevent our unity and weaken our ability to fight our real enemy. The Bezoses, the Gates, the ruling class of the world, that buy our so-called representatives and control our society. We can and must fight for the reforms that can begin to unravel the racism and oppression that is so systemic to capitalism. But in order to end racism for good, we must do away with this vicious, anti-human system and place power firmly in the hands of regular working people to decide and democratically plan our own fate.
So they've just come out and announced that the Worcester City Council has unanimously voted to reconsider the budget. Now, we shouldn't back off the pressure at this point because they have just voted to reconsider it. That doesn't indicate how much they will, whether or not they will stop the $250,000 that they have allocated above the existing budget for next year, or nor does it indicate that they will cut any significant percentage from the budget. But it is certainly a victory here in Worcester and a step in the right direction, and we need to keep up the pressure.